Ambassador Jack Harris sat in the waiting chamber outside the Grand Assembly Hall and tried to control his breathing. He had been doing this job for 12 years now, and every single time felt the same. The other species made them wait. Always waiting. Sometimes for hours. The chamber was beautiful, he had to admit that. The walls showed images of 1,000 worlds, all the species that belonged to the Galactic Assembly. Except the images of Earth were always small, always in the corner, always easy to miss. That was not an accident. Lisa Morgan stood near the entrance, her posture relaxed but her eyes constantly moving. She wore the formal uniform of a human diplomat, but Harris knew better. Lisa had commanded warships before taking this assignment. She was here to advise on military matters, but really, she was here in case things went wrong. Her hand rested near her side, where Harris knew she kept a small weapon hidden despite the Assembly's rules against it. "They're making us wait again," Kyle Bennett said. He was young, only 30 years old, and still believed that patience and good arguments could change minds. Harris had been like that once. "It's been 2 hours. They know," Lisa said quietly. "They always know." The door finally opened. A tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms gestured for them to enter. It did not speak, did not welcome them, just pointed. The Grand Assembly Hall held representatives from 47 species. Humans were number 48, the newest members, and everyone made sure they remembered it. The room was arranged in circles, with the oldest species in the center and the newest on the outer edges. Humanity's seats were so far back that Harris needed the chamber's translation system turned up just to hear what was being said. High Arbiter Zexthal sat in the center, ancient and proud. His species, the Krell, had founded the Assembly 10,000 years ago. He looked at the human delegation the way someone might look at a bug that had crawled onto their dinner plate. "The humans wish to speak," Zexthal said. His voice made it clear he thought this was a waste of time. "Very well. Speak quickly. We have important matters to discuss after this." Harris stood and walked to the speaker's platform. He carried a data tablet with humanity's proposal. 70 years of being treated like children. 70 years of unfair trade agreements. Of being denied access to the best trade routes. Of watching human colonies struggle while the Assembly gave its favored species every advantage. This proposal would change that. Equal representation, fair trade, simple respect. "Honored Arbiter, esteemed members," Harris began. "Humanity has been part of this Assembly for 7 decades. In that time, we have followed every rule, paid every fee, and respected every treaty. We have proven ourselves as responsible members of this galactic community." He saw some of the aliens shifting in their seats. A few were paying attention, but most looked bored. "We come before you today with a simple request. We ask for equal trading rights with the core worlds. We ask for representation in the Assembly's Economic Council. We ask to be treated as partners, not as junior members who must always ask permission." Harris activated his tablet and displayed the data, charts showing how human colonies paid higher taxes than other species, numbers proving that human merchants were denied access to profitable routes. Evidence of how human proposals were always delayed, always denied, always ignored. "This is not fair," Harris said. "We have earned the right to be equals." He waited for questions, for discussion, for any sign that they had listened. Zexthal made a sound that the translator called a laugh. "Earned? Your species has existed in space for barely a century. My people had a galactic empire when your ancestors were living in caves. You wish to be equal to us?" Another alien stood. This one was from Vraxis, a proud warrior species that had never liked humans. "The human makes amusing sounds," the Vraxian delegate said. "They always want more. More rights, more access, more respect. Perhaps they do not understand their place." Several other delegates laughed. Not all of them, Harris noticed. Some of the younger species stayed quiet. A few even looked uncomfortable. But none spoke up. "Your biology is weak," the Vraxian continued. "You need special environments to survive. Your ships are crude. Your technology is borrowed from species who felt sorry for you, and yet you come here demanding to be treated as equals?" The Vraxian made a dismissive gesture. "You are water bags with delusions of significance," more laughter. Kyle Bennett's face turned red with anger. Lisa Morgan's expression did not change, but her hand moved slightly closer to her weapon. Harris kept his voice calm. "We may be young, but we are not weak. We may need different environments, but that does not make us inferior. Every species here started somewhere. We are simply asking for the same opportunities you gave to others. Denied, Zexthal said immediately. The Assembly has reviewed your proposal and found it premature. Perhaps in another century, when humanity has matured, we can revisit this discussion. This matter is closed, just like that. No debate, no discussion, no consideration. Harris had expected this, but it still felt like a punch to the stomach. Honored Arbiter, we respectfully request. The matter is closed, human. Return to your seat. The delegation walked back to their distant chairs. Harris could feel the eyes of the Assembly on them. Some pitying, some amused, none respectful. The session continued with other business. A trade agreement between the Krell and the Shen was approved in minutes. A request from the Toro species for mining rights was granted immediately. Everything humans asked for took months or years. Everything the elder species wanted happened instantly. After the session ended, Harris and his team returned to their quarters on Nexus Prime, the massive station where the Assembly met. Lisa immediately swept the room for listening devices. She found 3. They're not even trying to hide it anymore, she said, crushing the small devices. Kyle paced angrily. This is ridiculous. We had all the data, all the evidence. They didn't even look at it. They never do, Harris said wearily. He poured himself a drink and sat down heavily. They don't see us as equals. They never will. So what do we do? Kyle asked. Before Harris could answer, his secure communicator buzzed. The encryption was military grade, which meant this was not a normal diplomatic message. He opened it and read quickly, his expression darkening with every line. What is it? Lisa asked. Intelligence report from Earth Defense Council. The Assembly is moving peacekeeping fleets into position near our space. Multiple battle groups, including Krell and Vraxian ships. Peacekeeping fleets, Lisa repeated. For what? Harris scrolled through the report. There's a proposal being drafted. They're calling it the Human Integration Act. It would place all human colonies under Assembly Protectorate status. We would lose sovereignty. Our governments would have to answer to Assembly overseers. Our military would be restricted to defensive operations only, and even those would need Assembly approval. The room went silent. They're going to force us, Kyle said. After everything we've done, all the rules we've followed, they're going to take away our freedom. Harris kept reading. There's more. The proposal includes something called cultural rehabilitation. Human children would be sent to Assembly education centers to learn proper galactic values. Our media would be monitored. Our technology development would be controlled. That's not protectorate status, Lisa said coldly. That's occupation. Harris closed the report and looked at his team. For 12 years, he had been patient. For 12 years, he had believed that diplomacy could work, that eventually the Assembly would accept humanity as equals. He had been wrong. I need to contact Earth, he said. We need authorization to activate Protocol Exodus. Lisa's eyes widened slightly. Protocol Exodus was the code name for humanity's backup plan, the plan they hoped they would never need. The plan that assumed diplomacy would fail and that humanity would need to leave the Assembly, by force if necessary. You're sure? Lisa asked. Harris thought about the laughter in the Assembly Hall. He thought about 70 years of being treated like children. He thought about the fleets moving into position, about the proposal to take away humanity's freedom, about human children being taken from their families for rehabilitation. I'm sure, he said. Send an encrypted message to Admiral Sullivan. Tell her to begin preparations. And Lisa, I need you to contact our special teams, the ones we have embedded in Assembly facilities. The spy networks, Lisa said. Intelligence assets, Harris corrected with a slight smile. We're diplomats, remember? Kyle looked confused. What special teams? What spy networks? Harris and Lisa exchanged glances. The young diplomat still had so much to learn. Kyle, what do you think humanity has been doing for the last 20 years? Harris asked. Did you really believe we came to the Assembly with nothing but good intentions and hope? Yes. We came with hope, Harris agreed. But we also came with preparation. Every human merchant ship that trades in Assembly space has detailed sensor equipment. Every diplomat has intelligence training. Every colony has hidden military installations. We've been building, planning, and preparing for the day when patience runs out. That's espionage. That's against Assembly law. So is denying member species their basic rights, Lisa said. So is planning to occupy human worlds. They never played fair, Kyle. We were just better at hiding it. Harris pulled up a star map. 3 months had passed since Harris sent his report to Earth. 3 months of preparation, of quiet coordination, of moving pieces into position. Now the day had finally arrived. The emergency session of the Galactic Assembly was packed. Every species had sent representatives. Everyone knew what was being voted on today. The Human Integration Act sat on every delegate's data screen, ready for approval. The elder species expected an easy victory. Some had even started celebrating early. Jack Harris walked into the assembly hall with his delegation. Lisa Morgan walked beside him, her diplomatic uniform perfect, her expression calm. Kyle Bennett followed behind, carrying a data case that held something more important than documents. Around them, other human diplomats took their positions. To anyone watching, they looked like defeated people coming to accept their fate. The assembly was wrong. Zexthal called the session to order. We gathered today to address a matter of galactic importance. The human species has proven unable to govern itself responsibly. Their colonies are chaotic. Their military buildup violates the spirit of assembly law. Their cultural values are incompatible with civilized society. Harris listened to the lies without expression. Around the hall, other delegates nodded agreement. The Vraxian delegate looked particularly pleased with himself. Therefore, Zexthal continued, we have drafted the Human Integration Act. This act will place all human worlds under Assembly Protectorate status for their own good. They will be guided by wiser species until such time as they prove capable of self-governance. All in favor? Hands and tentacles and other appendages rose throughout the hall. 43 species voted yes, only 3 abstained, none voted no. The motion passes, Zexthal declared. The human delegation will now acknowledge their new status and, no, Harris said. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the hall. The translation system made sure every species heard it clearly. Zexthal looked surprised. Excuse me? Harris stood and walked to the speaker's platform. He did not ask permission. He did not wait to be recognized. He simply took the position and began to speak. 70 years ago, humanity came to this assembly in peace. We came with hope. We believed in the ideals you claim to represent. Justice, cooperation, the unity of intelligent species working together for the greater good. He paused and looked around the hall. Every eye was on him now. We were fools, he said simply. This assembly does not represent justice. It represents the tyranny of the old over the young, the strong over the weak. You do not cooperate. You dominate. How dare you? Zexthal began, but Harris kept talking. For 70 years we followed your rules. We paid your taxes higher than any other species. We accepted your trade restrictions, even though they strangled our economy. We waited for hours outside this hall while you made us feel small. We listened to your jokes about our biology, our culture, our worth. We bent, we compromised. We swallowed our pride again and again and again. His voice grew harder. We did everything you asked, and you responded by trying to take away our freedom. You voted to occupy our worlds, to take our children, to erase our identity. You call it protection, we call it slavery. The hall erupted in angry shouts. Several delegates demanded he be removed, but Zexthal held up a hand for silence. He wanted to hear this. He wanted to watch the human grovel and apologize before accepting his fate. Harris smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. You made one mistake. You assumed we would accept this. You assumed that because we were patient we were weak. You assumed that because we followed your rules we had no other options. He activated a holographic display. It showed human colonies across space. Every one of them lit up with red symbols. Every human world has just activated defense grids that we've been building for 20 years. Every human merchant ship in assembly space has just armed itself with weapons you did not know we had. Every human colony has mobilized its military forces. The shouts turned to gasps. Several delegates checked their own data screens and went very quiet. The Earth Defense Fleet is at full readiness. Our fleets are positioned at every strategic point. We have technology you never knew we were developing. We have weapons you cannot imagine. and we have been planning for this day since we first realized what kind of organization you really are. Zexthal's expression shifted from smug confidence to uncertainty. You cannot threaten the assembly. We have 47 species, you have one, you cannot win. We don't need to win, Harris said. We just need to leave. And if you try to stop us, we will hurt you badly enough that you never try again. He looked around the hall one more time. Today, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Assembly, effective immediately. Any attempt to enforce your occupation will be considered an act of war. Any attack on human worlds will be met with overwhelming force. We are done asking for your respect. We are done accepting your contempt. We are leaving. Harris gestured to his delegation. As one, every human in the hall stood. They moved toward the exit in perfect coordination. Stop them, Zexthal commanded. Security, detain the human delegation. They cannot be allowed to leave. Assembly security forces moved to block the exits. Large aliens armed with energy weapons took positions between the humans and escape. They looked confident. Humans were weak, everyone knew that. What were a few dozen diplomats going to do? Lisa Morgan moved first. Her hand went to her side and came up with a small weapon that should not have made it through assembly security. Except Lisa was not really a diplomat. She was a warship commander who had spent 12 years training for exactly this moment. The security guard nearest her went down before anyone realized what had happened. Then Kyle Bennett, the idealistic young diplomat, pulled out his own weapon from the data case. Then every human diplomat in the hall drew hidden weapons. They were not diplomats. They were soldiers. They had always been soldiers. The fight was quick and brutal. Human weapons made sounds the assembly had never heard before. Railgun pistols that punched through armor like paper. Electromagnetic pulse grenades that disabled energy shields. Foam explosives that sealed doors and created barriers. The humans moved like a trained military unit because that's exactly what they were. They covered each other, advanced in formation, and eliminated threats with cold efficiency. Assembly security had numbers and size and fancy energy weapons. The humans had training, surprise, and weapons designed specifically to counter everything the assembly relied on. Within 2 minutes, the humans had fought their way to the exit. Within 5 minutes, they were running through the corridors of Nexus Prime Station. Behind them, alarms blared and more security forces mobilized. But the humans had planned this escape down to the second. They reached the docking bay where their ship waited. It looked like a normal diplomatic vessel, sleek and unarmed according to assembly regulations. But as they approached, panels slid open to reveal hidden missile batteries and point defense systems. The ship had always been a warship pretending to be something else. "Get us out of here," Harris commanded as they boarded. The ship's pilot, a woman named Ellen Price, was already warming up the engines. 30 seconds, Ellen said calmly. Station weapons are powering up. They're trying to lock down the docking bay. Can we make it? Watch me. The ship blasted out of the docking bay half a second before the doors could seal. Station defense turrets opened fire immediately. Energy beams lit up space around them. But the human ship was fast, faster than it should be, and its shields held against the first barrage. Then another ship appeared. A massive vessel that had been hiding in the station's sensor shadow, using stealth technology the assembly did not know humans possessed. It was a destroyer, heavily armed, and it immediately positioned itself between the diplomatic ship and Nexus Prime. "This is Captain Greg Parker of the Earth Defense Ship Defiant," a voice broadcast on all channels. "Any vessel that fires on human ships will be considered an enemy combatant. Nexus Prime, stand down your weapons or we will disable them." The station's weapons kept firing. Captain Parker had expected this. The Defiant launched a spread of missiles that weaved through point defense fire and struck the station's main weapon batteries. The explosions were carefully controlled, powerful enough to destroy the weapons but not damage the station's civilian sections. The message was clear. Humans could hurt you if they wanted to, but they were being merciful. For now, more human ships appeared out of nowhere. Frigates, destroyers, even a carrier group that had been waiting at the edge of the system. The assembly had no idea humans had this many military vessels. The intelligence reports had said humans had maybe 50 warships. Suddenly, there were over 200 ships surrounding Nexus Prime. Admiral Kate Sullivan broadcast from her flagship. She was an older woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. She wore the uniform of Earth's defense fleet with visible pride. This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the United Earth Defense Force. For 70 years you told us to be peaceful. We were. You told us to follow the rules. We did. You told us to respect your authority. We tried. Her voice hardened. But you never respected us. You never saw us as equals. You saw us as something to be controlled, to be dominated, to be erased. She paused to let that sink in. Today, humanity answers. We will not be. 1 week after the walkout, the Galactic Assembly still could not believe what had happened. The humans, the weak junior species, had defied them. Worse, they had escaped with ease and activated military forces that should not exist. The Assembly's response was predictable. They would show the humans that rebellion had consequences. They would crush this uprising quickly and remind the galaxy who held power. The Vraxian Second Fleet was chosen for the honor. 200 warships, battle-tested and powerful. Their commander, Fleet Marshal Krondax, was a veteran of a dozen conflicts. He had never lost a battle. He did not plan to start now. His target was New Terra, humanity's largest colony outside of Earth. 3 million humans lived there. The planet had farms, factories, and trade centers. Taking it would cripple human expansion and force them to surrender. They are children playing with weapons, Krondax told his officers as the fleet prepared to jump. We will arrive, they will see our strength, and they will beg for mercy. The Assembly chose us because this requires skill and honor. We will not fail. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel. The trip would take 6 hours. Krondax spent that time reviewing intelligence reports on human military capabilities. The reports were not impressive. Humans had some advanced weapons, yes, but nothing that could threaten a full Vraxian battle fleet. They had surprised the Assembly with their hidden forces, but surprise only worked once. The fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of the New Terra system. Scanners immediately began mapping the space around them. What they found made Krondax pause. The system was quiet. Too quiet. There should be merchant traffic, defensive patrols, civilian ships fleeing in panic. Instead, there was nothing. Just empty space and the planet itself in the distance. Where are their ships? An officer asked. Hiding, Krondax decided. They know they cannot fight us, so they run, cowards. He opened a communication channel. Attention, New Terra. This is Fleet Marshal Krondax of the Vraxian Second Fleet. You are in violation of Assembly law. Surrender immediately, and no harm will come to your people. Resist and we will take your world by force. No response. Typical human arrogance, Krondax muttered. All ships, advance. Battle formation. Prepare to engage any defenses. The fleet moved forward. They were halfway to the planet when the first mines detonated. The explosions came from everywhere at once. Mines that had been hidden in the system, sitting cold and silent, invisible to scanners. Fusion weapons that ripped through shields and armor. 12 Vraxian ships died in the first 30 seconds. Evasive action, Krondax shouted. His ship rocked as a mine exploded nearby. Find those weapons! Destroy them! But the mines were not staying in one place. They were moving, hunting, using small engines to chase the Vraxian ships. And there were hundreds of them. Then the railgun platforms opened fire. Humans had positioned them throughout the system, disguised as asteroids and debris. Now they revealed themselves and began shooting solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. The slugs punched through shields like they were not there. One shot, one kill. The railguns did not have fancy energy weapons or complex systems. They just threw metal very, very fast. This is impossible, an officer said as another ship exploded. Our intelligence said they had minimal defenses. Our intelligence was wrong, Krondax growled. He was not panicking. He was Vraxian. He had trained for this. All ships focus fire on those platforms, destroy them before they destroy us. The fleet turned its weapons on the railgun platforms. Energy beams and missiles filled space. Several platforms were destroyed. But for everyone that died, 2 more seemed to appear. Then the drones arrived. Thousands of them, small automated fighters that swarmed the Vraxian fleet like angry insects. They were too small for the big ship weapons to target effectively. They moved too fast for point defense, and each one carried enough explosives to cripple a ship if it hit the right spot. The drones did not fight with honor or strategy. They just attacked anything they could reach. They crashed into engines, weapons, sensors. They were suicide weapons, and there were too many to stop. "Get those drones off us," Krondax ordered. His own ship was being swarmed. Point defense guns fired constantly but could not hit them all. "Someone tell me where they are coming from." A tactical officer found the answer. "Sir, there are launch platforms hidden on the planet's moons. Automated systems. They're producing the drones even as we fight." Krondax made a decision. Half the fleet, break off and destroy those platforms. The rest, maintain formation and push toward the planet. The fleet split. It was exactly what the humans wanted them to do. The moment half the Vraxian ships broke formation, human warships appeared. They had been hiding behind the planet, using its mass to block sensors. Now they struck fast and hard. Captain Greg Parker commanded the human carrier Defiant. His ship launched fighter squadrons that hit the divided Vraxian fleet from behind. The fighters used hit-and-run tactics, striking and jumping away before the Vraxians could respond. "All squadrons target their command ships," Parker ordered. "Take out their leadership and they'll fall apart." The Vraxians were bigger and stronger, but the humans were faster and smarter. They had studied Vraxian tactics for decades. They knew how Vraxians thought, how they fought, how they responded to threats. Every move the Vraxians made had been predicted and countered. Krondax watched his fleet dying around him and finally understood. This was not a battle. It was a trap. The humans had turned the entire system into a weapon. Every asteroid, every moon, every piece of debris had been prepared to kill his ships. "Retreat," he ordered. "All ships, retreat to jump distance." But the humans were not done. As the Vraxian ships tried to escape, human cruisers appeared at the edge of the system. They had been waiting there, knowing the Vraxians would try to run. Now they cut off the escape route. "We're surrounded," an officer reported. Panic edged into his voice. Krondax looked at his tactical display. Surrounded, outnumbered, and outmaneuvered. Half his fleet was already destroyed. The rest were damaged and scattered. He had one card left to play. "Threaten the planet," he said. "Tell the humans if they do not let us leave, we will bombard New Terra. We will kill millions." The communication officer sent the message. The response came from Admiral Kate Sullivan herself. "Fleet Marshal Krondax, this is Admiral Sullivan. If you fire one weapon at New Terra, I will personally ensure that not a single ship in your fleet escapes this system alive. You came here to conquer. You failed. Now you have a choice. Surrender and we will allow you to live. Or fight and die. You have 1 minute to decide." Krondax had never surrendered in his life. Vraxians did not surrender. But he looked at what remained of his fleet. 47 ships out of 200. Damaged, scattered, and trapped. He thought about the warriors under his command. They would die if he gave the order to fight. They would die for his pride, his honor. Was that right? Was that what a good commander did? "This is Fleet Marshal Krondax," he said slowly. "We surrender." It felt like poison in his mouth. But it was the truth. The humans had beaten them completely. The battle lasted 3 hours total. The Vraxian Second Fleet, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, had been destroyed. 200 ships became 47 survivors. Thousands of Vraxian warriors were dead or captured. Human casualties were light. 14 ships damaged, none destroyed. 300 fighters lost. 17 railgun platforms destroyed. It was an overwhelming victory. The galaxy watched the battle reports in shock. Species that had laughed at humanity suddenly went very quiet. The humans had not just won. They had dominated a top-tier military force with ease. Back on Nexus Prime, the Assembly held an emergency meeting. The mood was very different from a week ago. No one was laughing now. "How did this happen?" a delegate asked. "The Vraxians are warriors. They have fought for thousands of years. How did humans destroy them so easily?" An intelligence officer presented the analysis. "The humans have been preparing for decades. Every colony has hidden defenses. Every system has been fortified. They have weapons we have never seen before. Railguns, fusion mines, drone swarms, stealth technology. And most important, they studied us. They know how we think, how we fight. They planned for every tactic we might use." Zexthal listened in silence. He had made a terrible miscalculation. He had assumed patience meant weakness. He had assumed following rules meant having no other options. He had been completely wrong. "What are human capabilities now?" he asked. "Unknown," the officer admitted. "Everything we thought we knew was false. They have been hiding their true strength for 70 years. We have no accurate assessment of their military power." Another delegate spoke up. "We must mobilize more fleets. The Vraxians failed because they were arrogant. We need overwhelming force. Crush the humans before they can prepare further." But some species were not so sure. A representative from the Kalari, a smaller species, stood nervously. "Perhaps we should consider negotiation. The humans said they do not want war. They just want to be left alone. Maybe we should let them go." "Impossible," Zexthal said. "If we let the humans defy us, other species will try the same. The Assembly's authority must be maintained." He did not say the other reason. The real reason he feared. The Krell had. 3 months had passed since the Battle of New Terra, 3 months of war that spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Assembly had responded to their humiliation with overwhelming force. 6 species combined their fleets and launched a massive offensive against human space. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched the tactical display. Hundreds of enemy ships were pushing into the Darwin system, one of humanity's most important strategic positions. If Darwin fell, 3 more colonies would be cut off from support. "Enemy fleet entering weapons range," her tactical officer reported. Multiple capital ships were outnumbered 5-1. "I can count," Sullivan said dryly. "Captain Parker, is your carrier group ready?" "Defiant is ready." Greg Parker's voice came over the communication channel. "All squadrons prepared to launch." Sullivan looked at the odds again, 5-1. The Assembly had learned from their mistakes. They came with overwhelming numbers this time. No more arrogance, no more underestimating humans. Just raw power designed to crush human resistance through sheer weight. "All ships," Sullivan ordered. "Battle Formation Delta, fighter squadrons, prepare for defensive screen. We hold this line. If Darwin falls, we lose the entire sector." The battle began badly. The Assembly fleet had learned to counter human tactics. They stayed in tight formation so human hit-and-run attacks could not pick them off one by one. They used heavy shields to absorb railgun fire. They deployed their own drones to counter human fighter superiority. The first hour cost humanity dearly. 3 destroyers destroyed, 2 cruisers crippled, fighter losses at 40%. The enemy kept coming, wave after wave, grinding down the defenders through simple mathematics. "We can't hold," Parker reported. His carrier had taken damage. 2 of his flight decks were offline. "Sullivan, we need to fall back." "If we fall back, 3 million people die," Sullivan replied. "We hold." On the planet below, people were evacuating. Ships lifted off carrying civilians, heading for the jump points. But there were too many people and not enough ships. Someone had to buy them time. Jake Foster and his special operations team were on the surface, setting up the last defenses. They had turned the planet into a fortress. But if the fleet fell, none of it would matter. The enemy would just bombard from orbit. "How long do we have?" one of Foster's soldiers asked. "As long as Sullivan can give us," Foster replied. He checked his weapon and looked at the sky. Somewhere up there, people were dying to give civilians time to escape. "Keep working, every minute counts." In space, the battle grew more desperate. Sullivan ordered her ships to use tactics that were risky, borderline suicidal, ramming attacks, overloading weapons beyond safe limits, anything to slow the enemy advance. Then the communication came in, a tight beam transmission from Admiral Sullivan's homeworld. Reinforcements are 3 hours away. Hold the line. 3 hours. Sullivan looked at her fleet. Half her ships were damaged or destroyed. The enemy had barely been scratched. 3 hours might as well be 3 years. We'll hold, she said simply. What followed would be remembered as one of the most brutal space battles in human history. Sullivan's fleet did not try to win. They just tried to not lose. Every ship that fell back was replaced by another moving forward. Every destroyed weapon was replaced by crew carrying whatever they could use to fight. Captain Parker's carrier was dying. Hull breaches on 7 decks, main power failing. But his fighter pilots kept launching, kept attacking, kept buying time. When the launch tubes failed, they used emergency airlocks. When the fighters ran out of missiles, they rammed enemy ships. One pilot, a young woman named Ellen Price, flew her damaged fighter straight into an enemy capital ship's bridge. The explosion killed her instantly, but took out the enemy command structure. The ship drifted helpless as its crew tried to regain control. "Parker, get your people off that ship," Sullivan ordered. "It's done." "Negative," Parker replied. His voice was calm despite the chaos around him. "We've still got guns. We'll keep shooting until we can't." Sullivan wanted to argue, but she understood. Sometimes you had to spend lives to save lives. Parker knew that. His crew knew that. They stayed. The carrier Defiant died slowly. Its weapons fired until they melted. Its hull held together until it could not. When the end came, Parker was still giving orders, still coordinating his remaining fighters. His last transmission was simple: for humanity. Then the ship broke apart. Greg Parker and 3,000 crew members died in seconds. But they had bought another 20 minutes. Sullivan watched it happen and felt something break inside her. Parker had been a good officer and a friend, but she could not stop to mourn. Not yet. She had 2 hours and 40 minutes to hold. The assembly commander, a Krell named Thexnall, watched the humans fighting. He felt something he had not expected: respect. These humans refused to surrender even when defeat was certain. They fought like warriors, like people who valued honor and courage. It almost made him sad to kill them. "Press the attack," he ordered. "Break through their line. Once we control the orbitals, the planet is ours." But the humans had one more trick. Jake Foster activated it from the surface. Throughout the Darwin system, asteroids began moving. Hundreds of them, equipped with hidden engines and guidance systems. The humans had spent months preparing this, moving asteroids into position, turning them into weapons. The asteroids crashed into the assembly fleet at incredible speeds. Each impact released energy equal to nuclear weapons. Shields flickered and failed. Ships were crushed or knocked off course. The carefully maintained formation broke apart. "Now," Sullivan ordered. "All ships, full offensive. Hit them while they're scattered." The human fleet surged forward. They were battered and bleeding, but still fighting. They struck at the confused enemy ships, targeting damaged vessels, overwhelming isolated groups. For 10 glorious minutes, the humans pushed the assembly back, then reinforcements arrived. But not the reinforcements Sullivan expected. Instead of human ships, other vessels jumped into the system. Ships from the Kalari species, one of the younger members of the assembly. Ships that should have been fighting for the assembly. "Unknown vessels, identify yourselves," Thexnall demanded. "This is Prime Counselor Threnix of the Kalari Free Fleet," came the response. "We stand with humanity. The Assembly's tyranny ends today." The Kalari ships opened fire on the Assembly fleet. It was not a large force, maybe 30 ships, but it was enough. The Assembly had to split their attention. The tide of battle shifted. More jump signatures appeared. Ships from 3 other younger species, all declaring for humanity. The Assembly had oppressed them for centuries. They had watched humans stand up and fight. Now they found their own courage. The battle turned into chaos. The Assembly fleet, surprised and divided, began to fall back. Thexnall tried to maintain control, but his captains were panicking. They had come expecting to crush a human defense force. Instead, they faced a coalition. "Retreat," Thexnall finally ordered. Fall back to Assembly Point Gamma. The assembly fleet jumped away, leaving behind their damaged ships and the bodies of the fallen. The Darwin system was saved. Sullivan sat in her command chair and felt exhaustion wash over her. They had won. But the cost was staggering. 60% casualties. Thousands dead, including Parker and his entire crew. The planet was scarred from bombardment. The orbital facilities were destroyed, but 3 million civilians had escaped. The system held. "Ma'am," her communication officer said quietly. "Incoming transmission from Earth. It's President Brooks." The president's face appeared on her screen. He looked older than Sullivan remembered. The war was aging everyone. "Admiral, I've just received the casualty reports from Darwin. He paused, gathering himself. I'm sorry we asked this of you." "Someone had to hold the line, sir," Sullivan replied. "We held it." "Yes, you did. Admiral, I need you to know something. The Assembly is preparing another offensive, multiple fleets this time. They're planning to strike at Earth directly." Sullivan felt cold fear. "How long do we have?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. They're mobilizing everything they have left. This will be their final push to break us. Can we win? Brooks was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know, but I know we'll fight. Admiral, I'm promoting you to Supreme Commander of all human military forces. You'll coordinate our defense." "Sir, Thank you, sir." After the call ended, Sullivan looked at what remained of her fleet. These ships, these people had given everything, and now she would ask them to give more. Meanwhile, back on Nexus Prime, the Assembly was fracturing. 4 species had openly rebelled and joined humanity. Others were wavering. The younger species were asking difficult questions about freedom and tyranny. The old order was crumbling. Zexthal watched his empire dying and made a desperate decision. In a secret chamber deep in the station, he met with 3 other elder species leaders. "We cannot win conventionally," he said. "The humans have allies now. Every battle we lose makes more species question our authority. What do you propose?" asked a Varaxian general. Zexthal activated a holographic display. It showed a massive weapon, something that had been forbidden for thousands of years. The Stellar Collapse Device. "We activate it near Earth's sun. The star becomes unstable and dies. Earth and all its colonies in that system are destroyed." The weapon facility floated in deep space far from any inhabited system. It looked like a research station, peaceful and scientific. But inside, the Stellar Collapse Device waited. A weapon powerful enough to kill stars. Jake Foster and his team approached in a stolen assembly shuttle. Their Kalari allies had provided the access codes, but getting those codes had cost lives. 3 Kalari intelligence officers had died stealing the information. Foster would not waste their sacrifice. "Approaching docking port 7, the pilot whispered. "Security sweep in 30 seconds. Everyone stay quiet." They docked without incident. The security systems accepted their stolen codes. So far, the plan was working. Foster led his team of 8 soldiers through the station's corridors. They moved like ghosts, avoiding cameras, bypassing sensors, eliminating the few guards they encountered silently. Every member of the team knew this was probably one-way trip. None of them cared. Earth needed this weapon destroyed. The device itself sat in a central chamber, massive and complex. It would take at least an hour to set charges properly to ensure total destruction. They had maybe 20 minutes before someone noticed the security gaps. "Plant the explosives," Foster ordered. "Amy, help me with the data core. We need to download everything so we can prove this existed." Amy Chen, the xenobiologist who had discovered the Assembly's biological stagnation, was not supposed to be here. She was a scientist, not a soldier. But she had insisted on coming because she understood the technology better than anyone else. "This is insane," she muttered as she worked. "They built a weapon that can destroy stars." "What kind of civilization does that?" "A desperate one," Foster replied. He was setting charges around the device's power core. A dying one that knows it's losing control. 15 minutes passed. The explosives were in place. The data was downloaded. They just needed to get out before the station realized what was happening. They did not get that chance. Alarms blared throughout the facility. Security doors slammed shut. Armed guards appeared from every direction. The assembly had known about the raid. Someone had betrayed them. Ambush, Foster shouted. Take cover! The firefight was brutal and quick. Foster's team was outnumbered 20-1. They fought with the desperation of people who knew they were already dead. What mattered was buying time for the explosives to finish their countdown. 2 soldiers fell in the first 30 seconds. 3 more went down holding a choke point. Amy Chen took a hit to the shoulder but kept moving, clutching the data core like her life depended on it. Foster, the charges are armed, one soldier shouted. 2 minutes until detonation. Everyone out, Foster ordered. Get to the shuttle. But assembly troops blocked the route. Foster made a decision he knew would haunt him if he survived. Amy, take the data core and go. Use the emergency maintenance shaft. The rest of us will hold here. I'm not leaving you, Amy protested. That's an order, Doctor. Earth needs that data, go. She went, tears streaming down her face. Foster and his remaining 3 soldiers turned to face the enemy. They had 2 minutes to hold this position. 2 minutes to make sure the weapon could not be disarmed. The fight was hopeless. They knew it. But they fought anyway because that was what humans did. When backed into a corner, when facing impossible odds, humans fought. One soldier ran out of ammunition and used his empty rifle as a club. Another, badly wounded, crawled forward to detonate a grenade in the middle of enemy troops. Foster himself took 3 hits but stayed standing through sheer willpower. With 30 seconds left on the countdown, assembly troops broke through their defense. An energy beam hit Foster in the chest, burning through his armor. He fell, his vision going gray. The last thing he heard was the countdown reaching 0. The explosion tore through the facility. The stellar collapse device shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. The station broke apart. Everyone still aboard died instantly. Amy Chen made it to a small escape pod moments before the blast. The explosion threw the pod clear. She tumbled through space, badly injured, clutching the data core. Kalari ships found her 3 hours later. She was the only survivor. Back on Earth, President Brooks received the news. The weapon was destroyed. Jake Foster and his entire team were dead. Humanity had lost heroes, but Earth was safe. Brooks addressed the planet again. The weapon is destroyed. Earth survives. But the price was high. Commander Foster and his team gave their lives to save us all. We will honor them, and we will never forget what they did. He paused, his voice hardening. The assembly tried to commit genocide. They tried to murder billions of innocent people. The galaxy needs to know what they are capable of. We are releasing all the data Commander Foster and Dr. Chen recovered. The data spread across every communication channel. Images of the weapon. Schematics showing how it worked. Messages between assembly leaders discussing the genocide plan. Everything was exposed for the galaxy to see. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Species that had remained neutral suddenly turned against the assembly. Even some elder species were horrified by what their leaders had planned. The moral authority of the assembly, already damaged, completely collapsed. Species began withdrawing, declaring independence, refusing to follow assembly orders. Within days, the once mighty Galactic Assembly controlled less than half its former territory. On Nexus Prime, Sexthal watched his civilization crumble. His own people had turned against him. The Krell Council arrested him for crimes against sentient life. The Vraxians and other co-conspirators faced similar fates. The Old Guard was being swept away, but humanity still faced one threat. The Assembly's loyalist fleets were coming to Earth. Not because they believed in the Assembly anymore, but because they had nowhere else to go. They were desperate, angry, and determined to take humanity down with them. Admiral Kate Sullivan coordinated the defense from her flagship. Every human warship that could fly was positioned around Earth. Every defense platform was armed. Every colony sent reinforcements. This was it. The final battle. The Assembly fleet arrived. It was smaller than before, only 300 ships. Many species had abandoned the attack. But 300 ships was still a terrifying force, but they were not alone. Ships from a dozen other species jumped in alongside humanity. The Kalari fleet now flying their own flag. Ships from rebels and revolutionaries. Even some vessels from former Assembly members who had seen the genocide plan and been disgusted. "This is Prime Counselor Threnix," the Kalari leader broadcast. "We stand with humanity. Any who attack Earth attack us all." The Loyalist fleet hesitated. They had expected to face only humans. Instead, they faced a coalition. Sullivan gave them one chance. Assembly forces, this is Admiral Sullivan. Your leaders tried to commit genocide. Your cause is lost. Surrender now and no more blood will be shed. Continue this attack and we will destroy you. Some ships in the enemy fleet broke formation. Their commanders had seen the evidence, had realized they were fighting for monsters. They surrendered or simply jumped away. Others, too proud or too stubborn or too invested in the old ways, prepared to fight. The battle that followed was different from the others. Both sides were exhausted. Both had lost too many people. Both knew this was the end, one way or another. Sullivan did not want to kill them. These were not evil people, just people who had believed in a lie. She used her tactical superiority to disable ships rather than destroy them. Her goal was to end the fight, not to punish. It worked. As more ships were disabled, more surrendered. The Loyalist fleet crumbled. Within 6 hours, the battle was over. Earth remained free. Kyle Bennett, the young diplomat who had walked out of the assembly hall 6 months ago, now stood in a very different meeting. This was not the Grand Assembly. This was a gathering of equals. Representatives from humanity, the Kalari, and 18 other species sat in a neutral station. They were here to build something new, not an empire or a hierarchy, but a real alliance of equals. We cannot make the same mistakes, Kyle said. He was older now, hardened by war but not broken by it. The assembly failed because the elder species made themselves rulers instead of partners. We must do better, Threnix agreed. No species should have permanent authority. All must have equal voice, equal vote, equal respect. They worked for weeks drafting what would become known as the Accords of Terra, a new form of galactic governance. No elder species, no junior members, just cooperation between equals. Species could join or leave freely. No one could be forced to obey laws they had no voice in creating. The Accords had teeth, though. A combined defense force would prevent any species from dominating others. Lisa Morgan, promoted after her role in the walkout, became the first Supreme Commander of the Coalition Defense Force. Her job was to ensure freedom, not enforce obedience. Jack Harris, the ambassador who had started this by walking out, addressed the signing ceremony. 6 months ago, we left the assembly because we would not be slaves. Today, we build something better. Not because we conquered anyone. Not because we forced compliance, but because we proved that standing up to tyranny inspires others to do the same. He looked at the assembled delegates. This will not be easy. We will disagree. We will argue. Some days we will wonder if cooperation is possible, but it is better to struggle together as equals than to suffer under tyrants. That is the lesson humanity learned. That is the lesson we offer to all of you. The Accords we're